are not presented to us. And I still go to different events. Like I was in a VA, and they had a group of young people that they were showing to be medical students and future medical students and healthcare providers. And there was only one black person in the group. And that has been when I was growing up. I remember when I was growing up, I was the only black person in the group, one or two black people. And that's institutional, that's racism. So they build it in. So we have to do something about that ourselves and not wait for somebody else to do it. All right, so I'm just going through this stuff to show you the percentages, and hopefully you get upset about it. But I'm showing you how you can pull yourself out. Because I was raised up on welfare, but I didn't stay there. My family nobody's stayed there. See, so you can pull yourself up, but the preparation starts when you're young in the household. My mother always instilled in us, be the best, and no matter what you do, be the best at it. And don't let nobody else tell you different. Black men have low earnings mobility. And if you don't take education seriously in middle school, in high school, in college, a lot of people, I don't want to go to college because it's going to be the loans, but even if you go to college and you got a student loan, your earning potential is going to be so much different. Your status, your upward mobility is going to be different. So not having a loan versus having a loan is a completely different lifestyle. You just got to pay it back. And this program will help you. We're going to get out of debt. We're going to pay off these student loans, and we're going to start some upward mobility. We're going to get out of legal trouble. We're going to get out of this child support stuff. We're going to stop looking at each other as economic opportunities, taking advantage of each other, hustling, and trying to con one another. Let's stop that. There's enough money. We spend more money on frivolous things outside our community every year when we need to divert a portion of that to economic building and sustaining our community. In terms of these individual earnings, black women have similar odds of escaping poverty as white women, though both these groups lag behind the upward mobility of white men. These analyses don't consider the income of other family members, however. What happens when we look instead at adult family income as opposed to individual earnings? A very different picture emerges for black Americans. See, our women, they getting paid, they're going to get that education, but they're not having social responsibility. They look at the black man, but they don't understand what has happened and how he got in that situation. And also that the moms, they will empower their daughters, but they'll beat down that black man. They'll baby him to death, treat him like his boyfriend or something, or catering to him, not making him do his chores, letting them get away with too much. But they hard on their daughters. So the daughters grow up to be leaders. They get to be tough, where the men are turned into girly men. They can't take care of themselves. And then you got some women, when they turn 18, they say, well, you got to go now because, you can't do nothing. You just like your daddy. You ain't doing nothing. But yet again, you haven't taught them to do anything. You haven't taught them to be responsible. They don't know how to work and how to be on time and to do anything. All they know how to do is play video games. You bought them a video game and sat them down, and that's their babysitter. So all they know how to do is play video games and smoke a blunt and drink beer all day. So we have to look at ourselves in a mirror and take personal responsibility and get these young kids when they're young. Everything in perspective. Everything in moderation. There's a time for everything. Black men and women have low family income mobility. Now, I alluded to that earlier. Black women face a very high risk of being stuck in poverty, 62%, surpassing even the 50% risk faced by black men. For whites, the odds of remaining stuck in poverty remain relatively low. For both men, 28%, and women, 33%, when we use a family income measure. The headline finding here is that among those who grew up poor, black women are the only group showing a marked difference between the risk of being at the bottom quintile, 50% of the individual earnings distribution for each gender. gender, and the risk of being in the bottom quintile of the family income distribution for the whole age cohort. Whites do well on both counts. Black men do poorly on both counts. Black women do reasonably well on the first and very poorly on the second. What they're saying is that if black women don't get married, it's just them, they do well. But if they marry a black man, they're going to do poorly. This result is probably driven by the fact that black women tend to create families with black men who do poorly on both counts and thus bring down the family income results for black women. See, but I've had clients. I've had a couple clients and that are black men and black women married. They were married like 40-something years, and they were millionaires. They were millionaires. So most millionaires are born from relationships. But if you do the right thing, you got smart people. You can't go out buying everything. They over consumer. They bought homes and real estate and invested and worked hard and had a stable home front. Wasn't going out gambling and drinking all the time. It can be done. And these were basic people. They were a school teacher. One worked as a mechanic for the bus line. Good job, good wage paying jobs, and so forth. One was a homemaker, and the husband worked. And over the years, they saved and they became millionaires. And one of them, I think the husband had just an 8th grade education, but he worked and they saved. So it can be done. Lower marriage rates aren't hurting black mobility. Why? Various explanations could be given. The most obvious is that, assuming marriages or cohabitation mostly occur within racial groups, black women's family position is damaged directly or indirectly by the poor outcomes for black men. That's why we got to work on black men. Sisters, sit down this course for the family. Make sure these black men are educated and focused. And before you get married, a relationship, enroll in a course together. You get a vision. And quit getting a relationship just because, I love him or I'm in lust and stuff. That passes. Create something together that is meaningful for the future so you can build together, so you have a higher vision. And like I always say, 1 + 1 = 3. There's a synergy. There's a cosmic force behind that. Even in the scripture says, where 2 or more are gathered together in my name, I am in the midst. That means it's power. When you take more than one pencil, you take one pencil, you break it. You put 2 together, put 3 together. The more you put together, the harder it is to break. See? So we have to do things differently. We have to think different. And you will learn that in the course that I have for you. If white women end up with white men, who in terms of their earnings are more than twice as likely to escape poverty as black men, their family income will be higher. We know that there's structural racism involved. It's criminal. We know this. But all we're doing, they're not doing anything about it. They're just talking about it. We have to do something about it. We have all these studies. We have our leadership is inept. They're criminal too because they're taking money out of our communities and not putting anything back. They're not preparing us for a future. They're not preparing us to compete. They're not preparing our children to compete. They're just trying to get paid. Equally, if black women are more likely than white women to end up as single, they will also record a lower family income. We set out to model the impact of household formation by artificially equalizing the marriage rates of black women and white women. The results, of course, depend not just on whether they marry, but also on whom they marry. In our simulation, we assume that the additional women who are married have a husband with the same economic characteristics as their brother. The institution here is that most people are likely to marry someone with a broadly similar background as themselves, and siblings, by definition, have an almost identical one. The results of this equal marriage rate simulation are as follows. Simulating marriage does little to improve mobility for black women. right? They have charts here. You can pull up the article, The Inheritance of Black Poverty. It's all about the men, right? Put it on Google, bring it up to see the charts. And I'll probably do a YouTube video where I can show the whole thing. But just visualize it. Just listen to me. Just listen to me. You know, people say, well, I'm a visual. I got to see it and stuff. You need to, I'm a auditory and all that. You ought to be able to do both. Your mind has to be able to do both. That's how you grow. See, because you're in different environments all the time. So slow down and open up that mind so you can absorb information, right? And listen to what's being said. That's why we're breaking this down into 5 different things. You can play it over and over again, but eventually you should get the point. Don't run away from the situation. Have love for yourself. Have love for your community. And this information is across the board. I'm just speaking from my perspective. But this can happen. This is good for every family. This material and stuff is not colorblind. You know what I'm saying? It's good for everybody, every community. Because even the white community now with the high rate of drug addictions, and so they're falling from grace as well too. So they got started off at the top, now they falling down just where everybody else is. That's where 99% poverty, right? 99% versus the 1%ers. While there is a drop in the rates of poverty persistence for black women, it is a modest one from 62% to 56%. Given the big race gaps in family formation, we expected to see a bigger change for black women. I remember one time, I think it's right before the housing crisis, you know, and the black women, they was giving them all these jobs, man. They was balling, man. They balling. You can't, had heads was high in the cloud, buying too much stuff, and then all of a sudden, the swipe of the hand, they all got laid off. All of a sudden, they got laid off. So they making $40,000, $50,000 a year, and sometimes more cases. And all of a sudden, they just lost their jobs. And I had one individual that I hired, was making copies and stuff, and she had the nerve to tell me that she didn't make copies. I'm like, well, you in the wrong place, because I turn white paper into green paper here, and in law office, that's all we do is copy and paper and write. So I don't know what's going on here. And I used to get paid $40,000 a year, $50,000 a year. I'm like, well, the true test is, can you make that on your own? If you don't have somebody paying you that amount of money, being overpaid, paying you that amount of money, can you make that on your own? See? So we have to be able to generate that kind of income within our own communities by knowing what to do and how to do it, and knowing how to manage our finances, our budgets, and investments. And we talk about Wall Street and investments and so forth. We have to do what they do. Create businesses, people who know how to create business, know how to operate business properly, and not just start a business because somebody tell you, you can fill out the forms now. Just fill out a corporation. You don't know why you're filling out that paperwork and why you choosing one corporation over another. And then when you fill it out, you're not doing anything, but the government charging you these $800 fees every year, and you're not even doing anything with the business. And one time I went to court, and this one lady asked me, are you an attorney? She was crying. She was like, I just came out of the court, and the judge just ruled against me. I had a corporation and just ruled against me and said it was my personal liability. I'm like, well, first of all, you shouldn't have tried to represent yourself. I don't know why. That's why you was in there, because you have a corporation. You can't represent yourself. You have to have an attorney when you do that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of implications that people don't know. We think we know, but we don't know. And there's no way of knowing something that you don't know. Then asking me, what, can you help me? No, I can't help you. It's too late now. And whatever you did it. I can't change that. If you have a corporation, you can't treat that like your personal bank account. You have to segregate those things. And you get they pierce the corporate veil. All of a sudden, you think you got a corporation, but they blowing straight through that and going to your personal net worth. That's why you have a corporation. That's why you have insurance and so forth, to protect your personal assets. But that's a story for another day. But we'll get to that. It's all in the course. Our results strongly echo those of the TD team. They did a study I have the complete study that I download. We probably go through that a little later, but it doesn't matter.